Hey, what's going on, y'all? Sean with Fitness Mindset Morning. I'm going to briefly talk about this cleanse that I'm in the midst of. I'm doing a vegetable and fruit cleanse where all I'm consuming is basically non-starchy vegetables and fruits. I am allowing myself to eat, almonds as well, almonds, almond milk, and I also allow myself to have some coffee. But aside from that, yeah, that's all it is. Now, the main things that I have noticed is, probably having to go to the bathroom more. And it's probably from, I don't know, maybe something about um, all the water content in like the fruits and vegetables and whatnot. Also, I've noticed just feeling light, and I expect this because I've done this kind of thing a few times in the past. But like, whenever you're only eating fruits and vegetables, especially whenever they're the non-starchy varieties, it's harder to get full. And so that's something that I've definitely learned and I've felt. And so pretty much every meal, like if your meal is based on greens, you got to eat a lot of greens. And then I usually have like a slight little dessert, so to speak, of fruit, on the side. So anyway, but it's all good. I feel lighter, I feel brighter, so to speak. And let me say this in this recording. And by the way, whenever you tune in to Fitness Mindset Mornings, you get an opportunity to hear this first, and you get an opportunity for question and answers from a certified personal trainer, um, as well as like my expertise aside from my training, health and fitness questions, whatever you want to ask, you get to ask that live here if you're a part of my private community. And the question and answer part does not get posted on my YouTube page. But anyway, let me say this. So my wife has actually she's talked off and on about doing something called a Whole 30. And Whole 30 is something that I've known about for many, many, many years now, at least a decade. And my wife and I actually did it once before. Um, but it's basically Whole 30 is somewhat of an elimination diet, so to speak. So it's supposed to help you to kind of like it's really supposed to help a lot from a health standpoint, kind of being very, very limited in regard to what one eats, certain fruits and vegetables. So certain vegetables and fruits are omitted. Um, Careful attention to the oils that one consumes, making sure, I believe, seed oils, different things like that. And she's been talking about doing that again, really for the past few years. And I was kind of on the fence. I'm going somewhere with this year, but I was kind of, I've always kind of been like a little resistant. I don't know if it's just because of my wife or whatever. Um, but here recently, I wanted to do a cleanse. I already fast a bit, but I wanted to do a cleanse because I wanted to have something where I was still consuming nutrients, yet being very narrowly focused to kind of allow my body to clean out excess inflammation and whatnot, which I've been kind of feeling in some of my joints, like my shoulders and my knees, especially. But the thing is, doing a cleanse is very similar to like what the whole 30 entails. Some slight differences, but it's largely the same thing. And so I was asking myself, why is it easier for me to do this than to embark on the whole 30 when I'm doing very similar stuff? But I think part of it is due to the fact that whenever I embarked on doing this cleanse, I was only focusing on what I could eat and not necessarily focusing on what I was not going to be able to eat. It's like I know exactly what I'm eating, what I'm able to eat during this cleanse. And I think sometimes the details of, basically the whole 30, which is kind of like a cleanse in and of itself, all the details that spells out kind of was messing with me and feeling real kind of restrictive and whatnot. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not. But what I'm saying is sometimes when we have a hard time making healthy changes, it could just be like a minor psychological kind of tweak that you can do to help you to be more open to it. And so, more specifically, if you can really, really focus on exactly what you're doing versus what you are doing away with, that might help. Case in point, I know I interviewed a lady. Actually, I know her from my childhood. There's a lady I interviewed when I used to do a podcast, and she actually embarked on, well, so this kind of proves my point. She did the Daniel fast, which was well, what is referred to as the Daniel fast, but it was just Daniel's way of eating. So we often refer to it as no meat, no breads, no sweets. But basically, Daniel in the Bible consumed only, as it says, like pulses and water. So only vegetables and water. So I think that's all she was doing. Now, but she knew exactly what she was doing. It wasn't ultra complicated in regard to how it was approached, like with all these stipulations and a long list of do's and don'ts. It's just to the point. No meat, no bread, no sweets. Just vegetables. And I think she was, of course, doing fruits as well and water. And she did that for the duration of the time that the church was doing it. But then she got used to it and was like, let me continue on. And she continued on that way for 2 whole years. Lost a ton of weight. And to this day, she has maintained it. And we're talking about at least a decade, at least a decade of it's probably decade and a half, 2 decades of like maintaining the results because it became a lifestyle. The point that I'm making is try not to overcomplicate whatever it is you are attempting to go into. For example, another example. So one of the biggest reasons I say it all the time. One of the biggest reasons people have weight issues is because of what they are drinking. Okay, specifically drinking a lot of soda, sweet tea, fruit juice, fruit punch, whatever, because it's all these empty calories that you're most likely not going to use if you live the typical American lifestyle. And even if you are very active, it gets hard to kind of use them because it's just so much empty energy. And so what happens is a lot of times when people are like, man, I can't, they're thinking about what they're giving up. I can't have such and such. But if you just like, okay, I'm drinking water, I'm focusing on water, and keep it as uncomplicated as possible. Perhaps even also just focusing on what you're doing rather than what you're not doing. Also, let me add this part in here. Focus on what you will gain. In other words, that change in and of itself is not only a change that will help you from a weight loss standpoint, it is one that will help you tremendously from a health standpoint, which is really the most important anyway. Sometimes we're so focused on aesthetics that we kind of forget the bigger and greater goal, which is health part. I'm not against aesthetics, I'm not, but we'll kind of forget that and we'll just kind of be going after the look. And so, but then because that's a okay goal, but because it still may not necessarily kind of rank for a lot of people higher than the things that they want, then it's easy for them to give it up. But like pursuing of health, try to get to a place where the pursuing of health is something that really appeals to you. And honestly, a lot of times it ends up being that way for a lot of us whenever we start to have like different kind of symptoms, pains, diagnoses, or whatever. That tends to like help you to be going after stuff for a health reason, like that higher reason. So anyway, try to make it as uncomplicated as possible. Okay. All right. So that's all I have for today. I think I've gone long enough. We're going to kind of like open the floor for questions now. If you want to be able to ask live questions, make sure that you join our exclusive membership program, patreon.com/Sean B2B Fitness. And that's all I got. Have a good one. If you're 35 to 50 years old and wanting to lose weight, get stronger, and become more athletic, but you keep finding yourself hitting roadblocks like aches and pains, stuck at the same weight, lack of motivation, even wondering if your fitness goal is impossible to reach, I got something for you. My exclusive fitness support consists of my daily fitness mindset mornings every weekday morning, where I teach you the mindset that fit people use to achieve high levels of health and fitness, and where you can ask me your specific health and fitness questions so that you can finally get unstuck. You also get access to my video workout library, as well as my fat loss workbook, fitness journal, and other helpful fitness related downloads we have available on our Patreon. If that sounds good to you and you're ready to change your mind so that you can finally change your body, your health, and your life, join us now at patreon.com/Sean B2B Fitness.